Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Mad Men Podcast, your podcast dedicated to the AMC television show Mad Men, where you can find your best source for news, talk, and more. And my name is Jeremiah, and I'm joined by the one person who told me that she doesn't mind two secretaries, Elise Crane Derby. How you doing, Elise? Is that correct?
I'm good. Sure, the more secretaries, the better.
That's right. I don't know what was wrong with Roger.
I know. I think he's a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Or overwhelmed. It's hard to say, really.
Yeah.
You never know with Roger. He's that kind of character. He's that kind of person. So
That's true.
Well, here we are, Elise.
He's mostly used to just being overserved, not overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true. Well, we are back again to talk about another episode of Mad Men. One of the last few, of course, that we have left. I do want to apologize last week for anybody who watched or listened to the show. We had so many troubles between our connections, and I messed up a bunch of stuff on my end. So I do want to really apologize for that, for all of those that normally listen to us on a regular basis. And of course, if anybody was new to the show, they're probably like, "Ooh, I don't think I'm going to listen to this one again." But hopefully that's not what happened. They'll come back. But I do want to apologize for that. Hopefully things go a little bit better tonight. We seem to be getting off to a better start, right, Elise? So maybe we'll have a better. We'll see.
Yay.
Hey, we're like we were talking off air just a minute ago. You know, we can only do so much. Technology sometimes fails us and causes issues, so nothing we can do about that. All right, Elise?
It's true. It's true.
All right, very good. Well, I definitely want to dig into this right away because I don't really have much news or anything. I did get from our intern, Greg, he sent me a little bit of information, something we didn't really talk about last week, but I'll go ahead and gloss over for a second. He wanted to mention that it looks like the ratings for last week's premiere was up 57%. It went up to like 3.6 million viewers for live same day. And that is really solid numbers for Mad Men from what I've seen over the years. It was up 60% with the 25 to 54 range and up 55% for the 18 and 49. So they had pretty good numbers for the premiere, but I still don't think it was nearly what they were hoping for, at least. But I think they were hoping that with having the break and splitting it up into two seasons, I really think they were hoping for gigantic numbers, doubling maybe what they had before, like what happened with Breaking Bad. But no surprise to us because we kind of predicted it. That didn't happen.
That's unfortunate. I mean, I never really pay attention to their ratings. I know watching, and as long as they keep making them, I'll keep watching. So I don't pay too close attention to that. But it is an uptick from their normal, so that's good. And they probably don't care at this point since they're not coming back.
Yeah, that's right. No, at this point they don't care. Everything is in the bank, and probably be the last time we would necessarily even worry about ratings. I mean, maybe we might mention what the finale gets. I'm going to be very curious to see what they get on finales. But I've always been down on the rating system. I don't think it's that great of a system anyway, so I don't really concern myself too much, and especially with a show like this, that ratings do not matter since the show is already done and wrapped up and ready to go. So we don't have to worry about it ever getting canceled. Let's put it that way. So he also got a little information about how some of the critics and stuff wrote about this particular episode. It sounds like overall, a lot of them were a little underwhelmed again. Most of them called it a very frustrating episode for lots of different reasons. So I want to go ahead and start off with this question about what did you think about the episode? Because Sherry on Facebook wanted to know if we were frustrated by the episode, because she certainly was, and went into a long list of things that bothered her about the episode. What about you, Elise? I know you weren't too excited about last week's episode as well. Were you down on this one too?
Well, yes and no. I mean,
Okay.
if we had an unforeseeable amount of seasons to come, I would have been perfectly. I liked the development of Diana, the waitress. I thought that story was interesting, but with the finite amount that we have left, it makes me curious where we're going. It was a little frustrating just because I feel like we should be tying up things, and I I didn't feel like that was happening. I felt like there was like, oh, and here's Sylvia, and here's Arnold, and all these people were popping in from the past. Here's Megan, here's Megan's mother, here's a new character, Megan's sister. So it was it was kind of like, what are we doing? Are we wrapping up, or are we carrying on? So it was a little bit frustrating, but I enjoyed it as an episode. But I'm getting nervous that I'm not going to get the closure I want, I guess is my feeling. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I found I do think I kind of fall in the category of a lot of the critics, because I do think that when you look at the stories that we got in this particular episode and some of the things that they were focusing on, I kind of did, by the end, feel kind of frustrated for a lot of the same reasons. I mean, let's take, for instance, the divorce, with getting to see the procedures of the divorce with Megan. I just don't know how important this is. For Megan, I fall into the category with Megan is that I've seen enough of the closure I had for her. We knew that the marriage was over with. I don't know if I really needed to see this much with what happened with the divorce, because I just don't see how, one, it makes me change too much opinion about Don. And it's certainly, I mean, maybe it's sort of kind of changed my opinion about Megan. Actually, I kind of walked away from this feeling a little bit more negative about Megan than I ever have been. So you had that aspect. Then you have the whole thing that's going on with this relationship, I guess we could call, with this Diana character. And again, I don't know where they're going to go with this. And I mean, we'll talk in more details with it, but I just don't see how it moved our characters forward, especially with Don, when we only have so many few episodes left. And I think that was the overall complaint with most fans, and I think that's kind of where I fell in the same category. But it was a great episode. I mean, we've said this many times before, that it's hard to find a terrible, even the worst episodes of Mad Men is still better than a lot of stuff that's on television. But yeah, I certainly could say I fall in the frustrated category.
Well, and I thought maybe by the end of the episode that the reason they did all this stuff with Megan was because they're setting up Roger and Marie to end up together. Because at the end they say that Megan's mother is leaving her husband for this man in New York, who we assume is Roger, since they've defiled Don's apartment and then gone out for drinks, of course. So I don't know if that was the rap story for Roger. Yeah,
I do think that, and that was one of the questions I had for you about where this thing is going to be headed towards with Marie and Roger. Certainly seems like that she may be wanting to go, to be with Roger. And okay, so let's say like that is one of the things that's going to come from this episode. Okay, that's great. So maybe that will be the closure for Roger. He ends up with her. I mean, okay. But I mean, other than that, I mean, you just kind of, after you watch the episode a few times, you still kind of struggle about where this is going to fit in. And hopefully, maybe, Elise, in the end, Matthew will prove that, this episode was just as crucial to the end story as anything else we're going to see between now until the end. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm hoping for, at least.
Me too.
Right.
We won't know until we know.
Yeah, we definitely won't. Let's talk about the divorce a little bit more. I mean, so we got closure with this, I suppose, right? I mean, I guess this should be the end of Don and the Megan storyline, right?
Well, unless, yeah. I mean, I would think so. I can't imagine. I don't know. Maybe she'll decide to go back to him. $1 million is a lot of money. Maybe she'll be like, okay, I don't know. And with, Harry Cranes of the world out there to greet her, she may, I don't know, maybe she'll come back to him.
You think so?
Seems unlikely. I don't know. I mean, double second wedding with Roger and Marie, Don and Megan. So, no.
Yeah. Well, I will be the first to admit, I did not think we would see this whole thing play out with the divorce. I mean, with the whole procedures and the hearing so much of the fighting back and forth for money and stuff. I mean, again, I'm sure it certainly fit in thematically. I know that one of the things Greg found was a lot of people thought that they were really kind of pushing the whole women's liberation movement and things like that, because, of all the women in this episode kind of showed some sense of power. So and Megan, of course, had power over Don in this situation. Is that he just wanted to get this over with, and so he was kind of in the waiting to see what they could work out between the two of them. So I mean that's fine, but just I don't know. I just was really surprised that we got to see how this played out. One of the things that you picked up on that I really picked up on is the line that we get from Pete when Pete and Don are driving out for the golf game, and the two of them are kind of discussing about what Don's going through. And I like how you mentioned here how much you love this line, because I did too, because he says, "Jiminy Christmas, there we go again, or there you go, there you're going, trying to begin your life again and try to do it right. But what if you never get past the beginning?" And that is kind of seems like where we're at with Don Draper, right? He doesn't seem like he can get past that beginning when he starts a new relationship.
Well, I mean, I think that's more. I mean, I think they want to start a new life, but they never complete their development to do it right. So I don't know. I don't know if it's even possible for either of them. I mean, who could they meet? I mean, obviously Don picking Diana, that is not a good person to pick to plan your stable life forward with. He's got a lot of problems. So, I mean, he's kind of, he just repeats his same mistakes. And I don't think Pete's had much emotional or psychological development either. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting. They think they can just start over and this time it'll be right. But they can't even get to the beginning again because the women are all older and are on to them, I think.
Yeah. And does this, okay, so if you look at the Megan and Don's marriage, maybe really part of the problem was been with the beginning of this relationship is I think both of them had different expectations of what the marriage was going to be like. And, when you have that, I think that's really hard to get past any beginning of starting all over again. When he thinks that, the marriage is going to be one thing and she's thinking of something else. I mean, to me, they both got in this thing for the wrong reasons. And this is why it's kind of failing. And like you said, Don keeps making these same mistakes over and over again. So it should be, in fact, they even mentioned that, I think, kind of in his conversation with Pete, is that, he's been through this before, and he keeps doing these same mistakes. Is that what we're leading to, I think, with this whole thing, is pointing out the fact that Don does sort of know that he makes these same mistakes, and maybe he can find something. Maybe he can finally find something for the right reason, or a person for the right reason, to start a relationship with someone that is not all for the wrong reasons. Does that make any sense?
Maybe. I mean, we haven't met that character, and we have very few episodes left. So, I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and I'm like, God, and she was as wound up in all of this as I am. And I was like, is it possible they're just going to leave us Dawn drunk at a bar, smoking, still on the same sad path? It's like, are we really not going to make any progress here? Because I mean, Diana certainly wasn't any progress. If anything, she was the worst of them all. I mean, I feel bad for her. Obviously, she's in a terrible place in her life. But, I mean, he was acting like he was ready to set up housekeeping with her. And it was like, what are you doing? That's the last thing this person needs.
Yeah, of course, the whole story with the Diana thing was tied up in everything that was going on with Don. And you're right. It's another example of something that's not at all for the right reasons. And of course, luckily, Diana kind of recognized that towards the end. One of the things I thought was very interesting about this was, you could tell right away. Okay, so Megan, obviously, she's struggling, right? Financially, she's struggling. She's not getting the parts. I mean, she's even turning parts down, which we find out when she has a little meetup with Harry, which, of course, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that. But just things don't seem to be going right for Megan in her life. And obviously, by the end of the episode, she definitely decides to take the blame game and blame everything on Don. Basically that he's ruined her life. She basically, by the end of it, to me, wind up being exactly what Roger said that was going to happen, right? Remember, Roger says, basically kind of said, well, she could be just another Jane. And she wound up kind of being another Jane. She almost said almost the exact same things that Roger talked about what Jane said during their divorce. Right?
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think that's actually how she felt. She kind of got pushed into that between what her mother was saying to her and then that lovely, lovely lunch with Harry Crane. And I think, she was just in a bad place and Dawn got the, fuzzy end of that lollipop.
Right.
Because before that, she was like, let's just get it done and you're dragging this out and I don't want to have to keep asking you for money. Let's just finish this so it can be done and I can move on.
Right. I'm glad you said it because that's what I was kind of setting you up for us to talk about because that's what I felt too is that I think she had I don't think she was Jane at all. I think the reason why she came out sounding a lot like Jane in the end is because you're right. She was just, at this point, she was frustrated and she was just taking all this stuff that had happened to her within the last, day or so, whatever it was, and was taking out on him. And it really had nothing necessarily to do about a relationship because that's one of the things that Jeannie on Facebook was asking us is that, because Megan or Don really didn't necessarily completely destroy Megan's life, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that. If you look at their relationship, I think that you could almost make an argument that maybe he was kind of positive in some areas for her, right? I mean, it did help encourage her to go become an actress eventually.
I mean, he wasn't great for her acting career, certainly. And I mean,
no.
I mean, being married to that level of an alcoholic has got to be. He was not great for her. I think she was very forgiving and understanding and hung out for a lot longer than she needed to. I mean, definitely, I think she, was overstating in the lawyer's office because of the reasons you listed. But he needs to own. I mean, like Pete said, they know it's their fault. I mean, they cheat on them. They show up drunk. They behave abysmally. So, I mean, he knows he owes her a million.
Yeah, I mean, Jeannie went on in her Facebook post to kind of talk about a lot of their relationship as a whole and mention a lot of things that, I mean, obviously, yes, Don has never been an ideal husband. And like we said earlier here in the episode or in the podcast, we had mentioned that a lot of the things that they were both going into this marriage was probably for the wrong reasons. But I mean, I think what I thought was very interesting in this episode is that she didn't seem to kind of admit a lot to some of her own issues or her own problems that didn't probably help the situation in the marriage. But what I thought was very fascinating is that, I felt in towards the end of the first half of season 7, Don really, I think, was trying to change. Okay, I'm saying trying. He's trying to change. And I think he really wanted to continue to move forward with Megan. I think he really did care about her. And I don't think he wanted the marriage to end. And correct me if I'm wrong, she was the one who said, hey, this is over. I'm done with you. I don't want to continue on. But yet it kind of felt like the way her mother and her sister felt is that he was the one that wanted to cut the ties. Did you kind of feel that way in the episode that both the mom and daughter or sister felt like that this was all Don's fault and that he wanted to end the marriage and so on and so forth? Did you kind of feel that way?
I don't know if they felt that he wanted to end the marriage, but just that his behavior had been so bad that he didn't give it a chance to work. I don't think I heard either of them say he left her or that he deserted her, just that, he was awful and he owed her and she should take everything. And so, I mean, they were all aware that he was, on her and I'm drinking way too much. And so, I mean, it's his fault. I don't think, I'm surprised if anybody questions that marriage fell apart because he was in extremely bad sorts most of the time.
Yeah.
He did have moments of, sobriety and monogamy, but they're passing.
But Elise, come on now. Don was ready to change. He was ready to change.
Every other week he's ready to change. And then he's ready to change back.
Well, I agree with you. The words were not actually exchanged of, that, well, Don was the one that wanted to separate it. I think that you can kind of walk away from maybe getting the feeling like maybe, you know, she was trying to put that part of it on him. I don't really, but I do agree that there's no doubt that everything that Don did in this relationship is what caused her to just say, I've had enough. And I don't think that there is any woman out there that probably would not feel the same way she did, that, you know, I know you're saying you're ready, that you think you're going to change, but I can't believe you. And I think it really, you know, to me, I think that final breaking point for her really was that conversation where she finds out that, you know, he wasn't even willing to tell her that he had been put on leave at work, you know, that he didn't want to spend any time with her. He had an opportunity where he could have flown back out to California and said, hey, yeah, these jerks, they put me on leave, but hey, this is my opportunity to be together. She just never felt that full commitment to her. And, you know, he spun her around for a while there about like, you know what, you're right, I'm going to go to California, I'm going to live with you. And then he doesn't do it. Me and you could go on and on about how many different things Don screwed up this relationship. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, I agree. This is all really Don's fault for the most part. And I'm not really surprised that they're, you know, that this is over. Darn you, Don. Messed up another one. Oh man. So I guess the big question for Megan now is that, you know, she's got this check for $1 million. Of course, as we all know, that's a lot of money. We'll look that up. That's about $6 million and change today, Elise. Would you like to have $6 million?
Sure. I don't know if I'm willing to be married to Don Draper in exchange for that's well-earned cash.
I'm on the record for saying I could be married to Don Draper for a few years for $6 million.
You're a better woman than I, Jeremiah.
Well, it's kind of lady I am. Oh man, my friends are gonna give me some crap about saying that, I'm sure. But yeah, so, you know, she gets a check. I mean, her attitude, by the way, definitely changed about everything after she got the check, right? I mean, when she goes back to see her sister, she didn't want to hear anything. She seemed to be just like, whatever, you know, I've got my money. I mean, is this going to make Megan happy? Because I don't think it's going to.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to allow her to take some more acting classes and buy some clothes and do whatever she thinks she needs to do to make it in acting, or just give up on it and become some sort of socialite or something. I don't know. But it's definitely going to give her the freedom to try some new things.
Yeah. Well, you look at the big check writing scene. One of the things Harold on Facebook, he was asking, he said that what he was thinking is that when Don wrote that check, he was already imagining that he would be married to Diana, and by writing the check would make him feel better about himself, and he was intending to move on with Megan. Do we agree? I mean, so what do you think? Do you that actually probably is true? I could totally see him thinking, I'm just going to write her this check. I'm going to move forward to this, and I'm going to hook up with this Diana lady, and everything will be okay. I could see that going through his mind.
I know. I mean, it did seem like the things he was saying to Diana and the way he was treating her, it seemed like he was, you know, maybe not ready to marry her, but definitely, you know, ready to have some sort of, you know, as far as committed relationships go with him. So, yeah, I don't know. I think he really feels like he blew it again, and he legitimately owed her whatever she wanted. I think he felt that way. He knows that, you know, he's damaged goods and he's screwing people up.
Yeah. I mean, certainly he probably at that moment, he could tell that she was upset and she wanted to move on. So writing this check and giving her the money would basically make, you know, he knows that's what she probably would want. He just wanted to be done with it. And I totally agree with that probably mindset for Don Draper at the time. So I think the most important thing I want to know is he going to be able to get any of this furniture back? I mean, the guy's left with no furniture now.
And I was wondering if he'll just get rid of that apartment, if he'll go back to some blue hole, or I don't know, maybe he'll buy a house
Yeah.
and have the kids. It's little notes of what a good daddy he's being, starting with like the opening scene of him making shakes in Betty's kitchen for the boys. So, I don't know. I don't know what his next turn is. I don't know how he'd get that furniture back. If it'd be worth it to him to have them bring the furniture back if it's already on the road.
I'm telling you, man, that whole furniture thing. Wow, that was cold, man. Couldn't even leave him anything, not even a breadcrumb. I mean, Marie, she cleared that place out, didn't she?
Yeah. Well, can you imagine if your daughter had been married to Don Draper? Wouldn't you want to clean him out?
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure. You could tell that she was clearly upset. We'll definitely talk a little bit about her and the way she defiled the apartment yes. with Roger. But let's talk about Diana first, because so much of this episode dealt around them. Roger, or Don and Diana kind of starting some type of a relationship, at least more sexual maybe than anything, it seems. But okay, so what did you think about this? Were you okay? I'll be the first to admit, I'm on record. I know I think last week I said, oh, Diana was just to represent all the women in Don's life that, the woulda, the coulda beens, right? The life not lived that we talked a lot about with the theme from last week. And so I was like, we're done with her. I said, no, we're not going to see any more of her. And what happens in this episode? There she is.
Diana.
Don tracks her down even, gets a hold of the owner of the diner and finds out where she's working, stalks her basically. And I was like, oh, man, now I'm going to sound like an idiot. Were you surprised to see Diana? Let's be honest. Were you surprised to see Diana again?
Yeah, and, like I always say, nothing they do on Mad Men surprises me. But I did not see that coming. So yeah, I was surprised at how much went into that. I mean, again, like I said at the top, that if this was a regular season, I would be like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But being that we're in our final episodes, I'm like, oh, we used almost an entire episode on the arc of this character who is brand new. So I'm wondering if she's going to be throughout the whole thing, if they're going to be a back and forth, and they will end up together. I don't know.
Yeah, that's something else that was the big thing that I saw a lot of fans writing about, was they were really mad. Like, why am I getting to learn about a new character? I mean, I've only got, so many 6 episodes left, and I got to learn about this other woman, and why should I care? Because she had a really sad, deep, dark backstory, of course. I mean, Don finally, like I think you wrote in our notes here, is that Don finally found someone that's just as messed up as he is. Kind of impressive, right?
Yes, it is impressive. You gotta look to find somebody that messed up. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely in a terrible place, and she obviously doesn't want anything. She just wants to be miserable. That's where she's at, and she's stated that pretty clearly. I don't want to be distracted from my misery. I can't even be with my child, my living child. I just want to be in this, rat trap of a room and wait tables and drink and, have sex with strangers in alleys. I mean, she just wants it to be as awful as it can possibly be. And that she's slipped into this thing with Don, and, she was starting to feel happy. She immediately righted her course back to, awfulness, that she, one of these people who's had something awful happen to them and just can't let go of that. Or right. They feel like they're betraying it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, I mean, I think a lot of people feel like, well, if there's a person that this woman is going to be perfect to start maybe a new life with, would be Don Draper, the guy who is a big fan of running away from your problems and starting a whole new life, right? Don Draper's definitely your guy.
He's really definitely familiar with this technique.
Yeah, she really was with the right guy. That aspect. Yeah, it was. So definitely one of the things that I'd like to talk about. I mean, we touched on a little bit, but Don did seem like he was seriously ready to have a serious relationship with this woman and move it much past them just sleeping around. And luckily, or I guess you could say luckily, that it definitely seems though that Diana was able to kind of pick up on that and basically kind of say, I don't think this is a good idea, and step away from the relationship. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the first thing I want to ask you, the big question probably with this whole thing was, it did seem that way, right? The conversation they had there in the apartment right towards the end, she basically said that Don was kind of helping her forget those things, but forget her past, but she really didn't want to, and that was her way of just saying, I don't want to pursue this anymore, right? I mean, it's over,
Yeah.
basically.
And I think Don, you don't need to explain that to Don. He absolutely gets that. He's like, okay, you're gonna just wallow in the sadness. And I mean, maybe she will come back if she changes her mind. Although it's gonna be very quick here. So I mean, I can't imagine. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with her. But it was an interesting little side note, and maybe they'll send him off, okay, I need to find my happy place now and be with somebody who's in a better place.
Yeah, exactly. She wasn't even impressed with the fact that Don Draper is able to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and dress himself completely in his finest suit to meet her at the door. I mean, to me, that's pretty impressive, right?
A 3 a.m. booty call in a suit. Very
Yeah.
nice, Don Draper. And he cops to being vain. He's like, oh, I'm vain.
My wife she just looked at me and she starts to laugh, and I go, listen, only Don Draper. Only Don Draper is going to go ahead and get up, shower. He probably showered, right? He's got his hair all good. Only Don Draper is going to make sure he looks his best, even if it means all they're going to do is take their clothes right off.
Yep, that's our Don. Gotta love him.
Yeah. It's just the way he operates. It makes me think of that SNL skit with Amy Poehler. I think was in it. Maybe it was an SNL skit. The one maybe it was Funny or Not Die. I always forget all. There's always these great ones that John Hamm was involved in for parodies on Mad Men. But the one where he just walks in and he goes, "Hi, I'm Don Draper," and she goes, "Hi, help me get out of this dress." It's like
Exactly.
he only has to say a few words, and the girls are ready to take it off.
Yep, that's our boy. He's got skills.
Well, one of the questions we got from David Baker on Twitter was that he's wondering about was she using? I know we kind of clarified that Don maybe was obviously serious about this relationship. Now, what was she getting out of this? Was she using him just for sex, just something to kind of get her mind off of what's going through her mind at the time, and she had no intentions on probably anything other than that? What do you think? Was she just using him for sex?
Well, I don't know,
Or
because
something.
I feel like she's not trying to distract herself. I mean, I think she's like just continually shaming herself and trying to make herself feel terrible. So the alley thing would certainly make that work. I think anybody who had done that would feel a lot of shame for quite some time about it. And the 3 a.m. thing is kind of seedy and weird. So, and then they had the connection about the child and everything that morning, and then she immediately pulled out of it. So, I mean, I don't think she was using him for anything other than trying to make herself feel more and more terrible about being her. But yeah, I don't see any positive for her.
Yeah. No, I don't either. And I'm glad you brought that up with the whole scene we had when she goes through the apartment. He wakes up and sees that she's kind of been snooping around his apartment, and she runs into Sally's room. And that's where we get this whole confession about what had happened that she had lost a child to the flu. And then, anyway, so she opens up to him. I wonder and what do you think about this? If she was ever thinking about, well, and I'm sure eventually maybe she will think about starting over with somebody else, but if she was, do you think maybe just the fact that Don has kids already, you think maybe that kind of scared her off a little bit, because maybe she doesn't want to rush into somebody that also has a family that she's going to have to be, maybe potentially eventually be a stepmom? I mean, maybe she doesn't want to do that because that's just too close to home to what she left behind. Does that
Yeah,
make
she
any
may
sense?
not want to be. She may not want to be around any children, but I, you know, I have no idea. I mean, I would guess no, she would not want to be around. She doesn't want to be around her own living child, so she probably doesn't want to be around anybody else's.
Yeah, I just wonder because she had a very, I mean, I know that her reaction to the room was significant because of this her backstory, but I mean, it just kind of felt like after we got through that scene that, I don't know, she may have made up her mind as far as, you know, how much further she was probably going to take this. That, and along with, I think she was really reading the signs about Don really probably not ready to really move on. So I think there was a lot of meaning there with that scene. And one of the things too, by the way, I wanted to ask you about this. I don't know if you picked up on it, but you know, she had mentioned that the reason why she chose New York was a coin toss. She was between that and San Francisco. I loved Don's answer. And this, by the way, this is later on when they were in bed together. I love Don's answer, by the way, about why he wanted to always be in New York, because he fantasized about everything he read and saw in magazines and in the movies, and you know how glamorous New York was going to be, and that's why he selected that. And to me, this does not surprise me at all. But I liked hearing Don say that New York to him was a fantasy, and he had to be there, and that was something he always wanted, and that's why he will never leave New York. He loves it. That's his fantasy. He's living out his fantasy. He's in the city that he always wanted to be in. Did you like
Yeah,
that? How he kind of threw
I
that in
did.
there?
I did. I liked that too, and I felt like I had always known that about him. That he had, seen
But it was nice
movies
to
as
hear
a
him say it.
kid. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. To hear him say like, "I want to go to that," I don't want to be in this bleak farm as a kid or whorehouse or wherever he was. I want to be in New York where everything's beautiful, and I think and I think a lot of people have probably mentioned that's why his look always stays the same. He is embodying that
That,
fantasy of his of being this socially upward handsome man from 1950 or whatever window of time that was that imprinted on him.
yeah, that vision that he has that he will never let go, because that's what he wants people to look at him as. I mean, he struggles with that with his image all the time, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
perfect. I mean, and I just loved how he finally said it. He goes, I've always dreamt about being here and being in this life, and it was just really nice to finally see him say that.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question for you is so Diana, is she correct? I mean, is Don truly not ready to move on with the serious relationship, or do you think maybe Don is ready? That's probably what we need to really ask ourselves after this episode.
Yeah, I mean, no. Based on his choice of Diana, I would say no. I mean, she's probably the worst woman he's ever picked. She is so, I mean, it's almost like he became more interested when he found out how sad and damaged she was. So I mean, he's still
Still,
not getting it.
yeah, he's still lost. He doesn't. He's still not at the position. I guess, is it possible here in the next, will be 5 episodes? I mean, are we going to see that he is that way? I mean, I'm starting to wonder if you're right. If we're just going to have an ending scene with him sitting at another bar, smoking a cigarette and drinking an old fashioned, and we're all left to go, well, I guess that's Don. He's just
Yeah,
going to be like that forever.
it's going to be very anticlimactic if that's what happens. But I'm kind of nervous that's where we're headed at this point,
And then
and it may
Elise,
just be like the silhouette that we
yes,
have him and in smoking and drinking and
the final
being in
shot.
New
You're right.
York.
It's the silhouette, and it gets darker and darker and darker, and it fade to black.
Sayonara, suckers.
And it's we're joking about this a little, sort of, but I'm not.
Oh my
I think
God.
it could very well be our final scene of Mad Men.
Hopefully
I
we're
really
wrong
do.
like we usually are. Hopefully we're
Yes.
wrong.
Yes, don't panic. For anyone who's new to us, we're wrong all the time, so don't
Yes,
worry.
yes. It'll be him parachuting out of the back of an airplane.
Well, we got a lot more things to talk about. Unless,
Okay.
was there anything else you want to discuss about the whole Diana Dawn situation? I mean, we
No.
obviously both think this is over, but it could be us leading us to more of seeing how can Dawn change or not change or whatever.
Right.
Whatever. So let's talk a little bit about the other big storyline, I guess, would be the whole Peggy, Stan, and Pima love triangle, shall we say? What'd you think about this whole storyline? Did you like it?
I did. I didn't understand what was going on at first, but I think Stan was supposed to shoot that commercial, and that Cinzano didn't like his work or something, and so then Peggy found somebody else to shoot it.
Yeah,
Samantha Ryan or Pima Ryan, and that's why there was that like angry exchange at the beginning between Stan and Peggy, and why he was kind of grouchy with Pima at the shoot. So I'm not sure. I don't know.
I'm glad you asked that, because that was one of the questions I had for you. Was it did obviously Stan was he scoffed really poorly at the idea. He did not like the idea of hiring this woman to do the Vermouth account. And that was the question I wondered. I was why. I think we kind of missed some other dialogue here, but I think basically it is one of those things that we're coming into this conversation. We don't get to see the whole thing. We're just left up to a certain impression, and the impression is that he is a photographer as well. He probably felt like he could shoot it, and he didn't see any need for us to go out and get this high-profile photographer. That's what I got away from it. So it sounds like you kind of were leaning towards that same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it sounds like he had shot something for it, and they didn't like it, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
And then and then there was just all of that, snotty stuff when they were on set with Pima. And I think, and Pima picks up on that and figures, that she can play him pretty easily, and does play pretty easily. Because, it's Stan, so he's just kind of easy to.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you put on our notes here, and
I think he by doing that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like, oh, I slept with her, so I've got, like he or something, slammed him down to the man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We had one of those I call the Google space that you go into, where I only heard like part of what you said, but yeah, I think what you're basically saying is that we're definitely with Stan. He definitely seemed like he was really annoyed by the whole thing, and like maybe that they were stepping on his ground here or something. Are you back, Elise?
I am.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, he went like, I don't know. We should come up with a name for that. Where all of a sudden the Google Hangout just disappears, and that other person, we can't hear them anymore. So one of the things you put in our notes is that Peggy mispronounces Stan's girlfriend's name, and you were wanting to know if that was on purpose.
Yeah,
I didn't even pick up on that.
She calls his girlfriend Ellen, and I think he and the other guy in the room both say Elaine.
Oh. Now,
so I think it's where she calls his girlfriend by the wrong name.
Is that just because maybe at this point in their relationship they probably don't really want to talk too much about, or they probably don't talk too much about what's going on when it comes to who they're dating or not dating, or maybe she just doesn't pay close enough attention to learn her name, or maybe she does that to just kind of annoy him a little bit. I don't know. But I took a pickup. I didn't even notice that she did that.
I think there's because when he talks to her about the Pima thing and saying like, isn't disappointed either, and Peggy says like, well, she's a lesbian, and he's like, no, she's not, because I was with her, and he accuses her of being jealous, and she's like, I'm not jealous. She hit on me too, and I wasn't a sucker enough to go for it.
Right.
So I think they like still are like having that kind of sparring all the time, but there's not.
Yeah, and I like too what you wrote about how you would think that Stan would have learned his lesson by messing with Peggy, that she always gets him in the end. and that kind of goes all the way back to when you think of that incident they had in the hotel room where they got naked together, right? She got the last laugh on that one too, I felt.
She does. She, do not bluff her, because she will call you on it every time and you will be embarrassed.
Yeah, come on, Stan. Come on, man. You should have learned by now. Don't mess with Peggy. She's a smart lady.
She is. She doesn't take much guff.
No, she does not. I did think Minnie Rogers, you mentioned earlier that she plays this character, Pima. I thought she did a great job. She really commanded the scenes that she was in. She really presented that character very, very well. I think she did very, very nice job. But I definitely don't think this is. I know I said this with Diana, but I really do feel like this is definitely a one-off time character that we were not going to be seeing her again.
No comment. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I guess when I think about this whole scene, I think it was not. I enjoyed it. I didn't hate or anything. I just kind of felt like, well, what exactly am I supposed to take away from this when it comes to when we're looking at Peggy and Stan that I didn't already kind of know about the two of them? Am I being too harsh on the writers here? Because
and I mean, maybe they're going to bring them together. Maybe that's why they did that. Why we're back to the same spot here with them.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was wondering.
I know it's hard to know where they're leading us, and I think they're doing that intentionally because this is the end, and they don't want to just walk us down this straight path to exactly where everybody thinks we're going. So there's going to be some blind corners, and I think they're going to try to surprise us and hopefully make us happy at the end, but it's hard to see it.
Yeah, I mean, we could sit here and talk about the things that brought out the two of them between this whole thing with Pima, and obviously Stan was, in the end, he seemed to be pretty satisfied with that. She seemed to be happy with his work, and he was being very proud of himself. And by the way, I did love the scene when she does try to seduce Peggy too. Peggy's first expression when she says, "I would love to photograph you," and she was like, "Oh no!" She was so bashful at first until she realized what was going on. I loved her expression on her face when she first heard that she wanted to take her picture. That she was like, "Oh, me? Really, me?" And then she realized, "Oh, okay, I know what's going on here."
But didn't her friend, the one that introduced her, isn't her first girl-on-girl proposition? I think that character's name.
Yeah, I know, and I feel terrible. I can't think of her name right now, but I do know what you're talking about, and yeah, so she's kind of delved a little bit into that world a little bit. It was nothing new for her, and she's a smart lady, and she picked up immediately about what was going on, that this woman was kind of hustling them to get their work, and so I mean that was again another example of showing us that Peggy is a bright lady, and she's really turned herself into a real true leader, and she is really good at what she does. And I'm always happy to see all those things with it. And like I said, I had no problem with the scene. I just didn't know anything new. I didn't feel like I learned anything new about the two characters. But you know what? Maybe some of our listeners feel completely differently about that, and we'll be able to leave some comments on this episode and talk a little bit about it, because I'd love to explore a little bit more about where they think we were heading with this story.
Yeah.
But
Please tell us.
I do, yeah, I do like that theory. Wondering that another focus on the two of them. I wonder when I say the two of them, I mean Stan and Peggy. I wonder if there will be something there.
Maybe poor Elaine or Ellen. She'll be out on the curb.
I was glad to see Kit Williamson, who of course plays Ed. We got to see him a little bit in this episode. Who I was very fortunate enough to get to interview him last year, so that was nice. Got some more airtime, so that was great. So there was some positive for the storyline.
Yes. So. I don't know if there'll be much development. Didn't he ask if he should grow his hair out or something?
Oh yeah. And actually too, there was a reference about that Stan thought he was gay, right? Is that what he said?
Oh, that's right. I don't think he used as nice a word, but yes.
Yes, no, that's right. He did not use the proper term for that. But no, I thought that was just very interesting that he said that. But just knowing the fact that I know that Kid is, of course, is a proud actor in the gay community. So I mean, he's of course heavily involved in a lot of projects for the gay community. So I just think that was very interesting that they threw that line in there. Oh, I thought you were gay, and I'm like going, oh, that's kind of interesting. Huh. I don't know if that was like a little. You never know why writers sometimes put certain dialogue like that in there. Throw something in there just to kind of, it makes you wonder, right? There was a lot of that, I'm sure, going on in this episode. I think that the next thing I want to talk about is that towards the beginning of the episode, we get to see, of course, Don making the milkshakes with making milkshakes for the kids. Did think that was a sweet scene, right?
Yes, that was very sweet.
I really enjoyed it.
I mean, it was surprising. At first, you were like, oh my God, what's he doing in their kitchen cooking? Did they get back together in whatever time period has passed here? But it did show that they're all, kind of on friendly terms.
Yeah.
I mean, it's icy, but it's friendly. Don was definitely ready to get out of there as quickly as soon as Henry came in. But it was friendly, and that he would go into the house and make milkshakes there says that, okay, they have brokered some kind of peace, and things are going well. Yeah.
The thing is, don't you think by now Eugene could get some talking roles? Isn't he old enough to talk?
No.
No. Okay.
Eugene is mute and will stay so probably.
Well, I definitely loved the scene, and it was certainly there again. That whole thing was to show us the fact that they have a decent relationship as a group of people. They seem to be working out things just fine. But I think most importantly, it was another example of one of Don's former relationship with Betty. That he, of course, left, and it's moving along fine. And from what I can tell, it seems like everybody seems to be somewhat happy, if that's even a possibility. But probably the biggest thing we learned.
Yeah,
I was gonna say is Betty. Tell us, what is Betty going to be doing?
Betty is going to get her master's degree in psychology, and I pity her patience. Oh my.
Would you find yourself? Would you like to your psychiatrist?
Well, no.
Have you found yourself drawn to Betty, like that you want to have conversations with her and share your confidences?
I do not want to confide in her and
really
lead me down a terrible, terrible road with some guy at the stables. No. But
did you like Don's reaction, by the way, to that?
He was like, "Oh, really? Great. Good for you."
He said his exact words were, "This should be interesting for all involved."
Well, I like to think that she's been in therapy over these, last couple of years.
Sure.
And, maybe she's come to some enlightenment, such as Betty is capable of.
Well, I think now we have our sequel spinoff. It's Betty as a psychiatrist. Forget all these other ones we've come up with. This is the one. Right?
Oh, no.
Oh, I would pay good money. And Don has to be her first patient.
Oh, my God.
Therapy like there's no tomorrow. So why not learn from Betty? Because she's so knowledgeable. She's so good with talking with people. I mean...
Yeah.
This was just so much fun. I was laughing so much just imagining Betty as a psychiatrist. It was just fantastic.
Well, I'm happy for her. She's going to go to school. She'll have a job. Maybe, she'll be a happy.
Yeah, I think that I think it's safe to say she definitely seems like she's happy and she's moved forward. We talked about this before, but I think that you're right. This could move into getting a job where she do something she enjoys, and she seems to be happy. Right?
Good for Betty.
Yeah, good for her.
She deserves to be happy.
Sure, why not? Why not? I think probably everybody was saddened that we get to see something from the Francis home and we did not get to see Sally. That's probably the only downside about the whole scene.
I'm sure we'll get to see her before the end, though. I'm sure we'll get some idea of where she's headed.
I agree. So Roger has 2 secretaries now. Who knew?
Yes. Yes.
Now I kind of gathered that it's because they're just so overwhelmed, or at least he seems to be, I guess, so overwhelmed with all the McCann stuff. There always seems to be helping out with McCann. We get this meeting with, even Don has this meeting with Roger about them going out to play golf with some clients. I mean, I guess he's overwhelmed, and now that means Caroline's overwhelmed, right? Is that what you kind of gathered from that conversation, or why she needed help?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Caroline can't even keep the clients straight, and she brings in Shirley to come help, and of course, Roger gets his little quip where they're, Caroline's reading the phone number and Shirley's dialing it, and he's like, "Yeah, this is definitely a 2-man job," but yeah, I mean, obviously, he has had to take on a lot more work after brokering this deal that he thought, they would be independent of each other. And we saw a little bit of this last week too with the whole Ken thing, that, McCann is a much larger presence than they initially thought it would be. So, yeah, that's probably not ideal for Roger. Obviously, he missed a meeting to have his little midday rendezvous with Marie. So,
yeah, he did want up that, but it sounds like the reason why he was going to do the golf thing is because Bert Peterson apparently is on the account, and obviously I'm sure Bert's probably got a restraining order against Roger, right?
I'm sure it works.
I'm sure Bert is not a fan of Roger at this point.
No.
They let him go like twice, right? They fired him twice. And as we all know, Roger loves firing people. We talked about that last week.
He does have a certain panache.
All right, so we put a close on the Roger Marie thing. I guess we could say it's possible that the 2 of them could become a couple. Are we going to both kind of agree on that, I guess?
Yes, I think so, which ruins my whole Mona prediction, but, what are you going to do?
I like that one, too. Meredith is very scared of the Manson brothers.
Yes, those Manson brothers. How do you sleep at night, those Manson brothers?
Now that had to be written in as a little nod to the fans that all wanted to believe in the whole Sharon Tate thing, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, he's probably feeding the beast now. Now he's like, "Oh, you like the Manson storyline? I'm going to keep giving you little crumbs." Just to make you think it's good. And we just love hearing Meredith say silly things like that. Everybody, I mean, Meredith's has a little cult following among the fans, I think, because she's so earnest, but she's so funny.
Yeah, I love her, and Stephanie Drake does a great job at playing Meredith. So the more Meredith, the better. I've been on board with that for a while. Now you noticed something I completely missed about the Torkelson rules that you were explaining to me off air. I don't know how I missed this.
Oh,
go ahead and explain a little bit.
I've been looking because they were talking about Torkelson last week, that he had impregnated Clara and was just kind of ignoring her. And then they brought up Torkelson again, so I was like, oh, there's Torkelson. And when they walk on the set of the Cinzano set, he's there, and they all walk in, and he's like, models and bottles. If you behave yourself until lunch, you can have either one you want. And it was just like, oh, you're awful. And then Peggy kind of excuses herself and walks out.
Wow. So I guess we should keep an eye on this then.
Well,
I mean,
Torkelson sounds like he and Harry Crane could be excellent friends.
yes, exactly. We almost forgot to mention about Harry Crane's attempt to seduce Miss Megan. That was very painful to watch. What Harry is he just going to go down? I guess as yes, I'm Harry Crane and I'm a sleazeball.
He is, and it makes me crazy because it's my grandfather's name. And it
Oh
makes
no, I'm
I wanted
sorry.
that character to be really nice. And I'm like, how can you do that to my grandfather? But
How
anyway,
dare him, Rich
how
Summer? I
dare
hope you're listening to this podcast, buddy. Your character
uh,
just throwing Elise's grandfather's name in the mud. I mean, it's terrible.
I actually met him one time at a thing at one of the studios, and I told him that, and he was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm so sorry.
He has a lot of fun with it. Like if you tweet him something about Harry being a sleazeball or something, he'll retweet it. He thinks it's funny. Because that's just how his character
he's great
is.
at it too. I mean, he does not seem to be that person at all in his actual life, obviously,
No.
And he does a wonderful job of just coming off as like this, sleazy, icky person.
Yeah, I've never met him before, but I could tell right away he seems like a really nice guy in real life. So, and a big fan of board games, that I know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I follow him on Twitter pretty closely, so I know me and him have the same passion of board games. So, Arnie and Sylvia, I would have not have guessed we would see this, but it does seem very natural that they would run into them in the elevator eventually, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I didn't think we'd see them either. I thought, okay, that's off the table, but it did. It made sense that they would bump into each other at some point, and Sylvia seemed fine. She didn't like scowl or anything that he had somebody with it. That Don had somebody with them. Arnold seemed half in the bag at least.
Yeah.
And they said they were coming from a wedding, and I tried to look at that person, but I didn't find anything on them. Somebody steal.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what they were talking about. I thought maybe at first they were talking about their son for a second getting married, but maybe not. I meant to go back and look myself, Elise, but hopefully maybe some of our listeners did a little bit more research in that. But yeah, I mean, that's great. We got to see them. That's fine. It was, I thought it was very interesting. Diana was able to pick up immediately that was someone that Don was with. So she's, again, very sharp woman. She doesn't miss anything when it comes to be able to pick apart who Don Draper is, right?
No. And I mean, I'm not sure if she got that or if she just thought like he brings women around all the time, that Arnold was giving him so much grief about it.
That's true. Arnold did kind of set that up, didn't he? As far as that, That's right. I forgot about that. So,
like, if you're not too exhausted,
right?
You have any strength left or something.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Unless you're too exhausted, that's pretty funny. Okay, so we didn't. A lot of people probably wonder what the date was. There was a date on the check. We didn't get to see the whole date, but it looked like it was the end of May. So we've only jumped a month. So a lot of time hasn't passed. A lot of people were wondering if time had passed because it seemed like, Don had been searching for a while for Diana, but I guess apparently a while was just a month. So not too much time.
She said she had gone home. She said she had gone home to sign divorce papers or something to finalize her divorce. So she's probably gone for a week or something. And he said that he had waited too long to go back to the Olympia to find her, the original coffee shop. So that makes sense, about a month.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially for the normal timeline for the show. I mean, a month is very, very common to jump from one episode to the next. Don kept Lane's Mets pennant, so we did see the Mets pennant is still in his office. Did you notice that?
We've seen that throughout. That was in last week too.
Was it? Yeah, I don't know why I missed it then.
They almost always show it.
Yeah, I guess I just missed it last time. Oh well. Still no Jim Cutler. I don't know what that means. I have no idea.
No, I hope he does come back.
Yeah, exactly. I would say.
Where are you?
Yeah, well, at least I'm sure we'll get some kind of. If he decided to go ahead and leave for some reason or got out of the contract stuff, I don't know, but maybe they'll eventually tell us. So.
Probably.
All right. Well, for the most part, I think that's it for me. Anything else you want to talk about? I'll go ahead and see if there's any questions here that we missed upon. I think we got through most of them. Let's see. D. Reen 861 wanted to know about, is Dawn haunting by nostalgia, constantly yearning? What does that mean? What does Dawn want? Well, I'll tell you what. If we could figure out what Dawn wants in life, we would be able to just solve this whole show, right? I don't think anybody
Yeah.
knows what Dawn wants, right?
Least of all Dawn.
Dawn doesn't know. Yes, there's your
No.
answer for you.
No.
Don doesn't know what he wants. I don't think so. How are we supposed to know?
Exactly.
All right. So I already mentioned Dave's tweet, and then let's see. We got Deb Michelle. Looks like on Twitter at Deb Michelle. She's sends us not a fan of Diane or Pima. With only a few episodes left, I don't want new characters. Time is limited with those I want to see more. And I think this tweet probably really sums up the feelings of a lot of fans. I think they don't want to see any more new characters. They just want to focus on the ones that we love. And I think that seems logical, right?
Definitely. I mean, I think that's what we've all said.
Yeah, I agree.
We all feel that way.
Very good. Well, it's time to close the show down. Elise, real quick, how's things going on the blog?
Things are going good. Things are going good.
What
Same old.
are you going to be writing about this episode, or have you written about?
I haven't. I'm very bad. I haven't written about this week's episode. Just busy life things, but yeah. So
okay,
things have been good. Just busy.
Well, definitely make sure you check out Elise's blog. Elise, tell people where you can find the blog.
It's the LA, or what is it? It's the LARambler.com.
Yes.
And you can find it there, and you can find me on Twitter at EliseCD. And just generally talking about TV and classic film and all that good stuff.
Yes, all good stuff. Definitely make sure you do check out Elise's blog and follow her on Twitter. Let her know how much you're enjoying her commentary here on the Madman Podcast. And definitely make sure you follow us on Twitter. Oh, Madman. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. We're at MadmanCast here. Certainly follow the show and keep up with what we're doing here. Of course, we're always talking. I know I'm always sharing stuff about Mad Men, whether it's stories, whatever is involving Mad Men. That's all I do and talk about on that particular account. So make sure you do that. If you're not subscribed to our show, please make sure you do. If you go to madmanpodcast.com/iTunes, you can get the link for iTunes. Or if you want to subscribe to our YouTube page, of course, we're doing videos, of course. You can definitely do that at madmanpodcast.com/YouTube. And just to make sure you just stay connected. And like I've said before, leave some comments on our episode feed here. You can find this particular episode at madmanpodcast.com/085. This is episode 85. Love to hear your thoughts about some of the things that we brought up in this episode, of course, and some of the questions we had for you guys. So we're definitely looking forward to hearing some feedback from you guys. By all means, anytime you want to, you can also email me at feedback@madmanpodcast.com. So, Elise, that's it for me. You have yourself a wonderful evening, okay?
You too. Stay mad.
All right, that's right, everybody. Take care and remember to stay mad.